really.
So we know how we got here. How do we get out? Economic policies and legislation are directly tied to every social movement in America's history.
The 19th Amendment had finally passed. American women could vote.
And as we've seen, policies that are considered to be related to social issues end up having wide-ranging economic impacts. Take Roe versus Wade for an example, an issue that has unfortunately shot back into the center of our current political discourse.
The Supreme Court today ruled that abortion is completely a private matter to be decided by mother and doctor in the first 3 months of pregnancy. The 7-2 ruling to that effect will probably result in a drastic overhaul of state laws on abortion.
When the landmark case was decided in 1973, not only did it spell victory for women's rights and bodily autonomy, but it had significant economic impacts which resonate to this day. Women's health care has always been linked to family well-being, impacting demographics both in and out of the home. But the increased accessibility of abortions, combined with the legalization of birth control for all women, married or otherwise, in 1972 allowed women to step closer to financial parity than ever before. Women's ability to effectively family plan and in some cases terminate unwanted pregnancies has shown direct links to healthier families, economic mobility, fewer children living in poverty, higher secondary education attainment for women, and positive mental health outcomes.
But there's another side to good health, and that's good mental health.
A 2012 study found that expanding access to family planning through Medicaid would actually save taxpayers approximately $1.32 billion by preventing unplanned pregnancies.
The 14th Amendment has never been applied to give women equal rights, equal protection under the law. She doesn't have any rights. Only the right to vote and the right to hold public office. Those are the only two rights that the Constitution of the United States guarantees her.
Reproductive rights are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to a discussion on how to shift the balance of wealth.
It's a wide variety of good old American choice.
But they provide a clear example of how any economic policy must be intersectional and center the groups that are the most harmed by the inequality of American wealth distribution. There are several policies lawmakers can enact that could begin to address economic disparities our country faces. For starters, we could amend the Reagan-era rule, which we mentioned earlier, 10b-18, so that no stock buybacks are allowed to starve the economy and corporations can spend their surpluses on employee wages. This does not need to be done via legislation. A new administration can do this through the SEC. Speaking of wages, we could move the minimum wage to a system based on the cost of living in any given locality. Also, the U.S. is the only industrialized nation that does not guarantee mothers or fathers get paid time leave to care for a newborn. So paid family leave is another policy. Education is one of the most important resources when focusing on economic mobility. So not only is it important to invest more in public education, but we need to make sure disenfranchised communities have the same resources and that college students don't get bogged down in student loans. We also need more policies that would address the disparities in home ownership rates. Also, tax policies that actually give breaks to those who need it most. As we've demonstrated, wealth inequality in our society is pervasive, and there's much more to the conversation than simply class. Race and gender should not be the only part of the conversation when it comes to economic policy. They should be at the forefront of lawmakers' mind when crafting laws that shape our society. As long as lawmakers prioritize the interests of their donors over the well-being of their constituents, the wealth gap will continue to grow. The good news is it doesn't have to be this way. In 2016, nearly half of eligible voters stayed home. That's tens of millions of Americans. If we mobilize our vote, we can take the power back from the donor class and force lawmakers to place American interests over corporate interests. In order to form a more perfect union, we must recognize and exercise our power and duty as citizens to impact policies that shape our world. Our chance is this November.